really comes from. Get the full story from farm to abattoir to fork. Kill it, cook it, eat it. Coming soon to BBC3.
Winter blooms in all their glory in Gardener's World in half an hour here on BBC2 after an altogether warmer visit to Kew.
It's summer at Kew and the mushrooms need more room, so the mycology collection's on the move.
This all messed up again.
Phil Stevenson's working with Ghanaian farmers on a plant pesticide that could save crops and lives.
What we're going to do is I'm going to dunk it in here. All the grain is covered, OK, in this water, yeah?
And one man goes to mow a very old wildflower meadow.
Takes me back to when I was a young lad, helping the farmer stack his hay bales.
For a scorching July, even Kew's sunflowers were beginning to wilt. But with the advent of August, summer's been turned on its head. The visitors are sent scurrying between the glasshouses. But down at the vegetable plots, the much-needed rain has plumped up a bumper crop for Kew's students. They'll be giving stuff away. But it's not the same the whole world over. In Kew's Jodrell laboratory, plant chemist Phil Stevenson's working on a much-needed project to relieve the problem of hunger in Ghana.
Well, this work ultimately could be very helpful for about 1 in 4 farmers who depend upon plant materials as their source of crop protection.
Insect infestation's a major problem in Ghana. Chemical pesticides are expensive and sometimes toxic. So Phil's working with their Ministry of Agriculture on natural alternatives.
I suppose the ultimate outcome could be we could improve the livelihoods of farmers and help perhaps alleviate poverty by reducing the losses farmers have from their crops.
Gathering in the yearly maize harvest is back-breaking work in this West African country. But it's not just people who want to eat the rewards of their hard labour. Hungry bugs are after it too.
Very small but very voracious insects and cause a huge amount of damage. So protecting the grain is extremely important.
Phil's been working closely with a regional agricultural development unit. His contact there is Fazain Harani, Prince to his friends. He administers government pest policies at local level. Prince has brought Phil to meet the Dagomba tribe, where the maize pests are having a devastating effect.
Yes, sometimes they don't even have enough to take them throughout the year because you have to feed your family. So the little that they harvest, they have to take very good care of it.
Their maize has to be stored for up to 12 months.
If it isn't used immediately, there's no physical protection from insects in these sacks, and the insects will just get straight in.
Maize meal is the staple diet here, and if the pests ruin the grain, there's little else to replace it.
It is prepared this way and allowed to cool down. They eat it with the soup.
There's one natural commodity they've come to rely on, the Securidaca tree.
Oh, can you smell that?
Its root has pesticidal properties, so the villagers collect it to protect their maize.
The smell of methyl salicylate smells like toothpaste.
Once it's been pounded, they mix large amounts in with the grain.
Is it about 5% by weight?
5%.
So if you have 10 kilos of grain, you need about 500 grams.
Yes.
That means an enormous quantity of Securidaca root, which is often harvested by pulling up trees, so it's more and more scarce. There isn't even enough root to protect all the stored grain, only the most precious seed for next year's sowing.
What we want to try and do is see if there's a way we can change the way farmers use the material. I think if it was used as an extract, it would mean the farmers didn't have to use as much of the root material, so it was much more sustainable use.
Wakehurst Place has had some wonderful displays this summer, but Kew's sister garden isn't just about formal planting. It also embraces the Loder Valley Nature Reserve. This conservation area includes some traditional meadows which are now incredibly rare. It's Steve Robinson's job to protect them.
Hanging meadow is what's called unimproved meadow. It had no history of any fertiliser, pesticide or herbicide. So these grasslands are very diverse in their flora and fauna.
Centuries ago, our ancestors cut these meadows out of the surrounding woodland. This grassland was used to make hay. It also provided a perfect habitat for an abundance of wildlife. But recently, Steve's noticed all's not well in Hanging Meadow.
It's shown a decline in certain species. We did used to get a nice flush of oxeye daisy in the meadow here, and now we don't have any oxeye daisy at all. Things like our southern marsh orchid and common spotted orchid, you know, they've slowly declined over the years, so it is going through changes.
The loss of flowers means the loss of the insects and the butterflies that rely on them too. Steve suspects it could be the way he's mowing the meadow that's causing the problem.
It's probably due to the very heavy machinery, large tractors that come onto the meadows. These meadows are quite sensitive. They can't tolerate big compaction from large machinery, so we're trying to downscale the machinery and try and get back to as traditional as we can, but still using mechanisation.
Steve's first job is to get rid of the bracken invading Hanging Meadow. In the past, he used a heavy tractor-drawn flail, but it destroyed everything in its path except the bracken.
There's a little saying, cut in June, you cut too soon, cut in July and it'll surely die. But I've been doing that for about 7 or 8 years and it's never died in July.
With the tractor banished, Steve's adopting a more labour-intensive but sensitive approach.
One of the good things about using a strimmer is that you can select your height and what you're cutting, so things like common knapweed you can strim round and it produces a nice purple flower. There's a lot of wood sage in here, so it creates a really nice aroma. Potentilla here, so we've preserved that.
All these flower heads would have had the chop if Steve had used his mower.
I think we sort of owe it to the generations before us to try and, you know, have a much more respect for these grasslands and treat them with the sensitivity they actually need.
He's hoping the variety of plants he's protecting will encourage the butterflies and moths to come back to his meadow.
These are quite small still, but they're just starting to form their membranes. They're still very young.
At Kew, the rain showers have brought out the fungi, and the mycologists who study them too.
There are about 30 members of that genus that have been recorded here from these gardens.
Yes. Since 1879, Kew's been collecting and cataloguing fungi from all over the world. The Mycology Building houses a huge collection which began with specimens brought to Britain by Charles Darwin. The problem for head of mycology Brian Spooner is this vast collection is mushrooming out of control.
Fungi are an immense group of organisms. They constitute a separate kingdom. They outnumber plants by probably at least 6 to 1 worldwide, and they're far less known. There's probably another 500,000 or so out there which we don't know anything about.
With this whole new universe to explore and collect, It's a good job the mycologists are being uprooted. They're moving to a brand new wing of the Jodrell laboratory. Here they'll have access to high-tech labs and equipment, and ample room in the basement for their predicted expansion. Despite the impending move, Curator of Collections, Begonia Aguirre Hudson, is still dealing with last-minute acquisitions.
Well, we have to make sure they are pest-free. And with this, I have to go to the freezer.
This is a journey Begonia will be glad to see the back of.
We keep the freezer outside in the shed, but that shed is going to be demolished very soon.
But for all its faults, the building has a special place in the hearts of the mycologists.
This building for me has been here through my whole career, really, and it's done well. And a lot of important work for mycology went on in here.
I do miss it because I wrote my PhD thesis in this building, so it's got long memories. Yeah.
In just over a week, the old building's due to be flattened.
Yeah, personally, I should be sad to see it go.
In Ghana, the Dagomba villagers are taking Phil to harvest some of the root they use as a pesticide.
You have to travel long distances before you get it.
They've already dug up all the Securidaca trees around their village, and it's 15 miles before they finally find one.
Gosh, it looks so nondescript, doesn't it? Somehow, amongst all the other plants. It makes you wonder how they would ever have actually figured out that that particular plant of all the others was so valuable and so important. Oh. Gosh, Colgate.
Prince has told Phil that a small number of farmers use Securidaca in a less wasteful way. They don't simply grind the root up, they put it in water and dip their grain in the mixture. But this group of farmers isn't familiar with that technique.
They don't use the water extract.
He's never tried?
They've never tried.
Oh, right, OK. So they might be willing to give it a go.
Yes.
OK.
But Prince can't ask his Ministry of Agriculture to recommend this water method until he's sure it works. So he's asking Phil to find the scientific proof. If Phil can show the water method works, the villagers will be able to use less Securidaca root and perhaps protect all their precious maize.
We want as much as we can to make maximum use of what comes out from the few plants that we have, so that it doesn't become an endangered species where we have to be chasing for it.
At Kew, mycology's on the move.
It seems to be endless.
They're shifting 8,000 specimen boxes.
We've got the boxes at least numbered up, as you can see, so that we keep the sequence right, because we use at Kew what we call a taxonomic or classification sequence. And it took quite some time to arrange it that way.
Ah, but you see, Brian hasn't accounted for the removal men shuffling them up.
We're having a good moan. Well, it's because it's all messed up again.
There are 20 van loads to take over.
We got 10 boxes missing. Yes, and they are the ones at the beginning, the ones we really need.
Brian's got the master plan.
The ones with the spots on them signify that the box is actually full. We leave a gap next to that in the other side, so that in the future, when we get some time after the move, that box can be split into two.
577 still missing.
Only another 13 van loads to go. Down at Wakehurst, hanging meadows buzzing, and Steve's thigh-high in grass doing his summer health check.
The meadow's coming to its peak now. Here we've got common century, a really pretty pink-looking flower here. Next to that, We've got birdfoot trefoil, we've got self-hill, meadow pea. Butterflies are on the wing at the moment. It's important to keep these grasses long and right the way through the summer for grassland butterflies to lay their eggs on.
An important measure of a healthy meadow is the butterfly population. So every week, Steve records the numbers and varieties he sees.
This time of year, we're predominantly getting meadow browns, gatekeepers, large skipper, small skipper, Essex skipper, ringlets, which you'll find in more of the damper areas. Sometimes the more common species are the ones that are best indicators for habitat change. So if we start seeing those numbers increasing, then we know that the grassland is healthy. And also, it's not just the butterflies. I can hear an abundance of crickets going on. I can hear the buzzing of bees. There's day-flying moths in the meadow as well. There's a whole host of different insects using hanging meadow.
At Kew, things are buzzing too. Phil Stevenson is back from Ghana on a mission to help the farmers preserve more of their grain by using less of the pesticidal Securidaka route.
If we find useful information about the chemistry, what we hope to do is to be able to improve the way farmers use it. So, for instance, if the active ingredients are soluble in water, it may be better for the farmers to extract the plant material and then treat their grain with that water extract rather than all the effort of pounding up the plant material and mixing that in, which is currently what they do.
He's managed to extract what he thinks is the pesticidal chemical, but will it be water soluble?
I'm going to add the water to this sample and then see if it dissolves, and completely disappeared, which means the compound has dissolved, which is exactly what we wanted.
He suspects it's a soapy chemical called a saponin, commonly found in plants.
Well, hey, look, we've got a froth. We've actually got a saponin here.
But the question is, will seeds coated in this soapy solution be protected from the bugs?
I've got the seeds that have been treated with the saponin that we've isolated from Securidaka in this compartment. And in this compartment, we've got seeds that haven't been treated with the plant chemical. And we're going to release insects, and they can choose either to lay eggs on this or this.
Grain bugs multiply rapidly, so it's only a few days before Phil gets some interesting results.
I'm looking at the untreated seeds at the moment, and there are eggs on them. They're definitely choosing to lay on the untreated seeds rather than the treated seeds. This is brilliant news because we can take this information back to farmers in Africa, because we now know that the water-soluble compounds in the root extract of Securidaka are actually responsible for protecting the grain from this insect pest.
The mycologists have one last day to clear their collections from the old building.
The delicate stuff is coming out today, and that will be it, really.
They've saved the most fragile until last. This is a collection of 8,000 slime moulds. Most people have never heard of them, but you can understand why mycologists are so fascinated by slime moulds when you see them magnified. It's recently been revealed that they're in a kingdom of their own, closer to animals than to plants.
That one seems to be living in a piece of carpet or rag. If you move them too much, they disintegrate and become dust.
Because they're so delicate, we have to do this operation very differently to the rest of the herbarium.
This rare collection is housed in bespoke cabinets. Over 200 drawers full of tiny boxes, all carefully sorted according to their classification. But to get the heavy cabinets down the 4 flights of stairs, the drawers have been taken out, leaving the slime moulds at the mercy of the removal men.
If they were lost, that's never to be replaced.
The slime moulds have made it down the stairs. They can do the rest of the journey tucked safely back in their cabinets. But over in their new home, they run into another problem.
Won't go, will it? You've tried how many times?
The lift's just too tight.
Yeah, but 90 Who put them in? Who put them in? We did. Take them back out there. Come on, let's not mess about no more. That's silly put them in the first place, wasn't it? Right, because they've been one of them damaged. What are they? Some fungus specimens. And they're worried about them get all mixed up. And some are probably quite rare, if not extinct, I don't know. Whoa. I'll hold it. Go on, carry it. You hold it down. There's a flathead bit, I think. I'll get a flat screwdriver as well. Get one.
It's been a rough ride, but it's all over. The slime moulds have made it and taken pride of place in my college's new home.
Wonderful new facility. This facility should give us plenty of expansion room to extend our molecular research programs.
The old building's already on its way out to make room for a new library. Begonias come to say her last goodbye.
Sad. Oops.
It's time to make hay at Hanging Meadow, and Steve's about to deploy his secret weapon. This is the mother of all mowers, £12,000 worth of lightweight Swedish engineering.
It's as close as we can get to actually using a scythe. It's 2 sets of teeth that run over the top of each other. And also it's got these tines on the front here that pushes through the grassland. This is all the dense layer of thatch in the bottom here, which we want to get out and get back down to the sort of basics, bringing life and health back into the meadow.
Unlike the heavy tractor-drawn industrial mower, whose spinning blades cause compaction, the prongs of this one tease and lift the matted grass that's built up. And it's got another marvellous design feature.
This is the Willy Wonka of the haymaking world, this is. The way the machine is vibrating, you can see as I'm going along with the machine like that, it's shaking all the flower heads and seed heads, and they're falling into these bare patches of soil here. Also, we're going to get moisture down there as well, which will hopefully germinate these seeds.
Steve's only cutting half the meadow. The rest will be left untouched to provide food and shelter for the wildlife.
As I was driving in, I saw a charm of goldfinches and their feed off these knapweed seed heads. All the butterfly eggs and pupae, they can overwinter in the grass here.
And the new mower comes into its own by tumbling the hay into mini bales.
And then all this, we had the rotary mowers here sucking up all the grass. This would go with it. In there it's full of grass seed and wildflower seeds. That's all going to go back onto the meadow. I do feel at one with the meadow. It's a nice time of year for me. It takes me back to when I was a young lad, helping the farmer stack his hay bales. Nice common blue. I actually find it pretty rewarding. You know, things are worth doing if you know the outcome's going to be beneficial.
3 weeks after haymaking, Steve has one last conservation strategy to unleash.
You need to shake your nuts harder, Francis.
Good man.
Steve's convinced our ancestors had it right, so with the help of some frisky newcomers, he's bringing back traditional autumn grazing.
There hasn't been livestock on here for 35 to 40 years, so it's quite an emotional moment here at Wakehurst.
As the Southdown lambs fatten up on the new flush of grass, even they'll play a part in nurturing the meadow back to full health.
The action of their grazing, and they're exposed the soil below, the action of their hooves in the soil here We'll make like little planting pits for the seed to drop into. We won't see results straight away, but over a number of years we should slowly see an increase in the diversity of the meadows and hopefully bring it back to how it was perhaps 50, 100 years ago.
Phil's come back to Ghana with the good news that the Securidarka pesticide is water-soluble. It's the scientific proof that Prince and the Ministry of Agriculture wanted.
We have actually been working with it, the dry matter, but with Phil's work in the United Kingdom, he is coming out with the solution.
Now Prince and Phil can show the farmers how to mix the root with water instead of grinding it up.
The best place to do these tests is right here in the farmer's village, because ultimately it's the farmer that's going to have to use this method.
This is something new to them, so that when they do it and it's working, then it will help us better. So if it works well, they will be very happy. Yes.
The demonstration should prove conclusively that if they use the water method, they'll need less root than if they use it in dry form.
This is the extract of the root bark in here, and you can see when I splash it around a bit, it shows that the saponins have been extracted successfully. You can see here that the froth comes up. Can I use this lid, actually, just to show how much is in here?
Normally, this amount of Securidarka root would only treat one small sack of maize.
So we'll try and make this go much, much further. OK, so this is 5 kilos of maize. What we're going to do is I'm going to dunk it in here. I'm going to have to leave it there for a minute or two to ensure that the whole lot gets soaked in this extract.
If
you look inside the sack, you can see that all the grain is covered, okay, in this water, yeah? And you can see that there's most of the liquid is still remaining. So you can treat more and more grain.
Phil's treated 1 sack, and there's easily enough liquid pesticide left to do another 9.
The bag is treated, and we need to...
But the villagers need proof that dipping the grain really will deter the bugs.
We brought some pots with us to run this little experiment, where we're going to put some grain into each of them. Some of them we're going to treat with the whole plant material all pounded up, and some of them we're going to treat with the water extract to see if we can compare how effective they are. You can see all the plant material is in lumps, and that's how you get such a lot of wastage in there, I think.
And to make sure it's a valid scientific experiment, there are 2 control pots with no treatment at all. Phil's confident the experiment will show that the dipping method works as well in the village as it did in his lab at Kew.
So now that the solution is working, maybe that will make the plant Securidarka survive in the wild, because we don't need to take so much roots.
For the Dagomba tribe, it's all good news. If the trial works, they should be able to treat more grain, have more to eat, and maybe even have surplus maize to sell at market.
It's a new technology that we have. So the farmers, when they go to marketplaces, they tell one another. When they meet, they exchange the knowledge that they have gotten.
It also allows the government here to move forward with aspects of this work, because they have the important or scientific evidence that they need to take the work forward. It is very rewarding. Hopefully it may make a difference to someone else's life.
Next time at Kew, a student finds out whether planting by the rhythms of the moon will make a beetroot grow better.
I've really got quite a lot of faith in it.
And Colin Clubb is looking for rare plants in the aftermath of a volcano.
If we lose it from Montserrat, that's a species extinct.
There are more fascinating details about the extraordinary range of work carried out at Kew in this new book to accompany the series. And the first 2 series of A Year at Kew are now available on DVD.
They'll pay £300 or £400 for a pair of sunglasses that cost, what, a tenner?
The crazy world of fashion through grumpy eyes. What to watch tonight at 10 on BBC2.
He was the leading expert on biological weapons and central to the row of why Britain went to war in Iraq. His death rocked the government and the BBC. The official verdict: